Hello children. Let us continue the same topic, friction. In that various types of friction, which friction is suitable for us. For all types of activities, we prefer the rolling friction. We prefer to move the object by rolling on a surface. From this, we can say that friction, it helps us in many ways and it gives more losses in many ways. Therefore, we can say friction is a friend. Friction is a friend. Or we can say friction is foe. Friction is also enemy. Foe. So by taking these two things, friction is a friend. It is friend or foe. Because it is required in some situations, it is not required in some situation. It helps us and it gives disadvantages. So we say friction is a necessary evil. In most of the situation we need the friction, where we consider the friction as a friend. For example, while walking, there must be friction between the foot and the ground. If the friction is greater, then we can walk firmly. We will not slip. Wherever we find a slippery surface, wherever we find the smooth surface, in that always we are thinking that we are going to slip. That means in walking, friction is required. In writing with the pen, there must be friction between the finger and the pen. While we are writing, we apply some force. In that, there should be friction between finger and the pen. Then only you will be able to write properly. Even if we lift, suppose you are taking out book or copy from your bag by holding the book in this way. While lifting the book, because of its weight, the book may fall down due to the gravitational force. And that gravitational force by the earth is opposed by the friction between the book and the finger. If the finger is not providing any friction, if there is no friction, then you cannot lift the book. So friction is must. Even when you hold anything, if that surface is slippery, then you cannot hold it properly. Where the friction is must. And to stop the vehicle, suppose you are riding cycle, in which as the cycle is moving, you find someone is coming in front of you and you are trying to hold the brake. If there is no friction between the rim and the brake pad, there should be the friction between the rim and the brake pad to stop it. There should be friction between the tire and the ground. If the friction is not present in that two surfaces, you cannot stop it. Or you can say to move, to start, to stop. For the starting or stopping of anything, friction must be present in that surfaces. Then only that is possible. Even you are standing at a place, and that place where you are standing is more slippery. You make that surface is more slippery, that is oiled surface. You are standing. Still you are standing. There is nothing. Nothing will happen. The moment you try to move in any direction, the moment you want to step out, definitely you will slip down. It is because there is no friction between the foot and the ground, because the surface is slippery, where the friction is required. So in this way, there are so many examples. Even in one more example. To light a matchstick, there should be friction between the head of stick in which chemicals filled, and on the side of the box also chemical filled. When you just strike the surface with the stick, due to the friction, spark is produced and it ignited where the friction is required. So like this, we have so many examples where friction is required. And also in our shoes, suppose we have two kinds of shoe. One is older, another one is new. In the older shoe, the grooves, the sole, it become polished. In the new one, the surface is giving more friction. The grooves are made. That grooves are giving good grip between the sole and the ground. That's why we are able to walk firmly with the new shoes. With the old shoes, sometimes we get slipping. So the friction is the friend. In these activities, we are doing that activities with the friction only. So we say it is friend. And friction is foe. It is our enemy because it is giving many disadvantages. It gives many losses for us. In these, whenever, suppose we ourselves do that activity, just by taking our hands and rub them. On rubbing the two hands for some time, we feel warmer, because when two surfaces are rubbing each other, any kind of surfaces rubbing each other, the heat is produced. The heat is produced. They become hotter. As you rub more and more heat is produced. This production of heat due to the rubbing of surfaces taking place in machines also, lighter machines or heavy machines. In all kinds of machines, the heat is produced. You can see in the kitchen, suppose the mixie, if you are grinding something in the mixie, after running that mixie for even for a minute or 2 minutes, the jar and the mixie becomes so hotter. It is because not only due to the electric current, it is also because the friction between the parts. Any kind of machine, after working for some time, they become hotter because the parts, the inner parts, so many parts are moving over the other. In that case, the parts are rubbing with each other, heat is produced and it becomes hot. And this production of heat is not taking place at a free of cost. Suppose a machine become hotter. A machine is working by supplying electrical energy. The heat is produced in that machine at the cost of electrical energy. But the heat produced is not useful for us. So that means ultimately we are wasting that electrical energy. The heat produced in that machine become waste. So ultimately, indirectly, we are wasting the electrical energy. So it means the friction, it causes the wastage of energy. Due to the friction between the surfaces, wear and tear of machinery parts taking place. Because of the wear and tear of machinery parts, the parts are to be replaced after some time. Otherwise, the machines will not work. This is also one very great loss for us. It produces heat, it causes wastage of energy, it causes wear and tear of machinery parts. This is the very great disadvantage for us. So, we can say friction is friend and a foe, because there are advantages and disadvantages. Both are present. Where we consider the friction as a friend, in that case we need more friction. Where we consider the friction as foe, in that situation we do not want the friction. We need minimum friction. We cannot make the surface zero friction. Friction present on all the surfaces, but we can minimize the friction. So we have to find the method of increasing friction and decreasing friction. There are so many ways in which we increase the friction, decrease the friction. For this topic, friend and foe, and decreasing, increasing friction, that you just read the book in that topic. That is just theoretical. You may read the book and you find many points that we discussed. So, just read the book. Next we will see in the next session.